Um, okay, should we start? Anybody have anything you want to share with us or any announcements to make? Only positive things will be tolerated.
Hmm.
It's great to see everyone. Okay, let's go with the presentation and then maybe we'll chat a little bit afterwards too.
Okay.
Take it away, Sue.
All right. Well, thank you so much, you guys, for joining us for our water happy hour. Um, I took into consideration that in putting this together that we do have a new cohort of folks, and I didn't want to overwhelm them or scare them. As usual, when we're teaching this stuff, I like to focus on the actual. You muted me.
Sorry, I'm
Um,
sorry. Thought you were a co-host. I wasn't supposed to. Sorry. Okay, move
um,
along.
I like to really lean into the deductive process as opposed to memorizing everything. As you go along in your surveys and you get more familiar with a lot of this stuff, a lot of it will become second nature. You'll start feeling different strandings with the seasons, with marine mammals and things like that. So we're really going to focus on some very basic IDs and some deductive thinking. A lot of people are very rusty coming back into, um, you know, regular surveys and stuff like that. So I think this will just be a great opportunity to just start dusting off our little marine mammal brains and getting into this. So it's going to be very simple. Hold on. Can you see me? Can you see the
No,
screen?
nope, not yet.
Huh. Hold on. Darn it.
It was working like literally 10 minutes ago.
It totally was working. Let me see. Share screen. Let me make it big. Beginning. And then, sorry, everyone. I got to do share screen first. Come on.
There you go. There you go, Sue.
Finally. Jesus. All right. Are we good?
Yeah, looks good.
You don't know what a technological cripple I am. So um, this is good. So anyway, uh, very basic marine mammal identification, Sleuthing with Sue, episode 95. Um, as we talk about in our trainings, there are sleuthing steps, um, and it's really ruling things in and out. You have 6 species of pinniped up for consideration who are here at different times of the year, sometimes overlapping. So you're going to begin by looking at the overall size to help you eliminate some species. Um, Flipper size and shape, which is always very helpful. Fur features, so that could be texture, color, um, among other things. Teeth, which we know can be very distinctive in some of these species. Vibrissa color and even texture, which is very helpful. The time of year, which, like I said, you'll get into a rhythm of when to expect things. Like, you guys know in January, February, we start to consider to expect elephant seals because it's about that time of year. That's what we start our years off with. But we're very rapidly moving into Guadalupe fur seal and harbor seal season. And then other bones. We've made our cheat sheets to include things like scapula, and sometimes we'll talk about bacula and determining a gender of an animal based on that. Um, so you guys have your cheat sheets. I don't know if you have your cheat sheets out now. It might be a good idea. Uh, And we'll go on to, let's see, our first one, sleuthing exercise 1. And again, this is very basic, but one of the things, a couple of the things that we would look at, we have the luxury of having a flipper available to look at, and throat pleats. We also have the genital slit and the underside of the tail flukes in this photo. So a lot of this, with all of these, a lot of these things are very helpful for us. With those throat pleats, what could we rule out straight away? One of those things would be a gray whale, because they don't have that many throat grooves or pleats. That's a pretty distinctive looking front flipper. And the tail flukes are pretty distinctive as well. The size, we can't really get a gauge for the size because it doesn't have anything for scale really in here. But are there any thoughts? Let's have some people in the comments give us a guess on what they think it might be based on what we can see here in this photo. And I'll let Catherine tell me what some of the answers are, or Drew.
There's one suggestion, 2, 3. Brenda, Sarah, Rebecca, Martha, Karen all suggest humpback whale.
Exactly. So this one was kind of a slam dunk. We don't always get the luxury of having this well put together whale. Sometimes they're very in a very poor condition. So you know, we have the multiple throat grooves, which, you know, gray whales only have 2 or 3, so that would eliminate that. The long flipper with the scalloped leading edge is a very diagnostic characteristic for this species, and they're just very super long flippers. We all know that they're very showy with those. And if you've ever been around a dead humpback, they're very, very long. Like you can stand under one if the whale's big enough. And then also the really distinctive looking tail flukes, the underside, that's what gets photographed. That's how they are identified in photographic catalogs, by the distinctive marks and the shapes and edges of their tail flukes. And if you were standing next to this whale, you would photograph all of the above and also that genital slit, because if there's a chance that this animal could wash out, we want to document it as much as we can. We can actually sex it by looking at photos of the genital slit. We've talked a little bit about that in our trainings, about how to tell whether it's a male or a female on something this fresh. The penis wouldn't really be that extruded yet, but when we've talked about it in trainings, we talk about the proximity of the anus to the genital slit. With females, it seems closer to being incorporated in the genital slit, and males, at least in this species, there's a little bit of spacing between the anus and the actual bottom part of the genital slit. So this very well, for everybody who got it correct, this is a humpback whale. Was there anybody who thought it was something else? And please don't be afraid to be wrong. I'm wrong sometimes, everybody's wrong sometimes. So it's not about who's right or who's wrong. We really want to walk people through these so that they build their confidence. So if there was anybody who got anything else and I can answer any questions about that, put it in the chat box.
Hey, Sue, you can also, on this whale, it looks like it's not very good in the photo, but you can see it sticking out, the little bump on its rostrum up there at the top.
Yeah, the nostril knobs.
Yep.
Yeah, so if you had the opportunity to walk around the backs, the top side of this animal, you would see other features like the rostral bumps, or the knobs on the end of the rostrum, barnacles and other things like that. It's a pretty exciting animal to ID because they do have a lot of things that will take you straight to proper ID just based on the really unique features that this whale has. I put my foot in there for scale. Any guesses off the top of your head? Anybody want to go through their cheat sheets and try and key this out?
Looks like we have 2 species suggested in the chat.
Okay. I don't have access to the chat, so what are they thinking?
There's some votes for Guadalupe fur seal and northern fur seal.
Okay. So if we're thinking that it's a fur seal, first of all, there's a couple of animals, species that we can eliminate straight away, just based on the size and shape of those front flippers and the features of the rear flippers. These are long tapered fore flippers and long kind of narrow rear flippers that have nails that you can see they're little white. Let me see right in here. Those are the nail beds. They're pretty far away from the tip of the flipper. So typically we see that a little bit more in fur seals. This is the underside of it, so it's not really going to be giving us a lot as far as identifiable features. They're bare, other than, you know, the fact that they're bare. And seals don't have bare surfaces of their front or rear flippers. They're both furred. So we can immediately take the species of seals out. This looks like a pretty small little guy. It could be this could be either the 2 sea lions or the 2 fur seals. So, you know, it could be a little sea lion, but it's also very small. And so the 2 species of sea lion, it's pretty rare that we see them this small. Sometimes in the summer, we'll get some neonates, little newborns that could be about this size. But it would have a dark pelage. The sea lions are born with a black coat, a darker coat, like it's more a dark chocolate, as opposed to like an elephant seal black coat. And this would be, it would just be a really uniform, dull colored coat. So it leaves us really with your first correct answer, which is it's one of the fur seals. If we're looking at this, you see this really lush, rich fur. You can see the underside and the top side of the front flippers. And when I'm trying to determine this based on a photograph, we're looking at the top part of the flipper here, and I don't see a break in the fur. Now, do you guys, anybody want to guess which species of fur seal has the abrupt break in the fur going down the front flipper? If anybody has. Northern fur seal does, correct. So you can see even from this photograph that there's some fur. There's no abrupt break. If you were standing over this animal, you could run your finger across that. I've had some that were absolute desiccated messes, like they were mummified and just picked over, and there was hardly anything left on the flipper. But if I found a little bit of fur anywhere past this point, I knew it was a Guadalupe, because northern fur seals never ever have fur from about this point to the end of the flipper. So we also have this nice little petite head with a bit more of a rostrum. It's got a little bit of a ski slope feature to it. It doesn't have that distinctive football shaped head that a northern fur seal has. Also, when we see northern fur seals, they also have a pretty distinctive cheek patch. This one could be a little deceptive if we were looking at this one and thinking, oh, northern fur seals have a little buffy cheek patch and vest or a little bib. This one definitely has some of that coloration and it could trick you. Now would be a time to remind you that we don't want to go down a rabbit hole of just one proper identification feature. You wouldn't look at this and go, oh, look, I see a little cheek patch and some buffy chest, so it must be a northern. You know, we're going to look at everything. You get a hunch. We think it's a fur seal. How am I going to determine between the two species of fur seal? And there are very distinctive differences between the two species. They also strand as, for the most part, only pups at different times of the year. Northern fur seals, we see them more in October, November when they're leaving their natal beaches, more locally out at the fairlands. So we'll see some in the area. Guadalupe fur seals are born in Mexico, and they leave their natal beaches after 9 months of maternal attendance, as opposed to northern fur seals 4 months of maternal attendance. So that's why they strand at different times of the year. So these guys are leaving their natal beaches now. It's usually the middle of February. Takes them about a month to get here, so they kind of start popping up, although we've already had 6 in California with a couple subadults. But these guys start showing up in March, and then we have our peak stranding months of April, May, and June for Guadalupe fur seal. But they can strand any time of the year, and we do get some juvenile age classes and things like that. But for the most part, it's usually young of the year. So this is a Guadalupe fur seal.
Any questions for Sue on that?
I don't have that many exercises, so.
Okay.
And what about age for this animal? Any ideas? Anybody out there? It would be really helpful if we had a date of stranding. That's
I normally
crucial.
have that
Yeah.
on these, but I wasn't going to, I didn't want to hurt anybody's brain by really focusing on that. There have been other sleuthings, advanced sleuthings or advanced trainings where I'll put the standard length and the date of stranding, but
Mhm.
I feel like I wanted to kind of take it easy on folks. You have my
Hey, Sue,
foot. Go ahead.
there's a comment that if you look at our cheat sheet, the hind flippers look so much like the northern fur seal.
Mm.
Right. So
And
fur
it's just
seals,
elongated. Go ahead.
they're really elongated and almost like one shape. And that's an otariad thing. They have those long nails. I mean, the long rear flippers. Northern fur seals have a little bit longer, relatively rear flippers. They look obnoxiously long. And the nails are set back at about the same position as these guys, but Guadalupe's rear flippers aren't as long relatively to the rest of the size of the body than northern fur seals. What was I going to say? Oh, with like stellar sea lions and California sea lions, their nails are a little closer to the end. They're usually a little bit further down like this, and then when they're really young, it's really close to the end of the flipper. And you can't really see it that well, but their little external pinnae is a little bit longer than either one of the sea lions, but that's going to take some experience. Like you're going to see enough sea lions so that when you see something like this, you'll say that external ear flap looks a little bit different than what I'm used to seeing. That's really what all of this knowledge ends up being, is like seeing enough of the common stuff that when something uncommon shows up, you want to kind of dig in a little bit more and figure out what it is.
So Sue, trying to guess your shoe size. How big are your feet? So
That's an 8.5.
Pronate would be about 24 inches. And to my eye, that looks like a little bit more than 24 inches, but maybe, because I'm thinking you have tiny feet.
I have an 8.5, but this is a Guadalupe fur seal. It would be extraordinarily rare for us to see a neonate here
That's
because
also, so
they
immature.
live, yeah, they live in Mexico for 9 months after they're
Yeah.
born. It's not unheard of. There have been some stray females who have given birth up here, but it's super, super rare. There is a couple of females down on the Channel Islands who pup. That is their historic range. They used to have a pretty decent colony there of breeding Guadalupes that befall, the same thing that befalls all the other lush furred animals. They disappeared. There is a couple of females out on the Channel Islands who pup, but they pup hybrids. They pup Guadalupe female California sea lion male babies. And surprisingly, those pups are actually fertile. So then they turn right back around and breed with a California sea lion. So they basically just start breeding the Guadalupe out of themselves. If they're going to be fertile, then they're gonna hang out with the ones that are around. They're gonna have babies with the ones that are around. So I don't know if the female Guadalupes are that. Well, if they're pupping here, they're getting impregnated here. So it's just probably a little group of weirdos who likes to hang out there and have pups there. But those pups get tagged by NIML and the National Marine Mammal Lab. I've never encountered one, but
Sue, I think one, a live one hung out on the Fairlawns a little bit 2 or 3 years ago that when they read the tag information, it was one of those hybrids from the
Yeah.
channels.
that's awesome.
Yeah, really cool to have that observation, and the fact that it was hanging out on the Fairlawns is interesting.
They go, we didn't really know. I was on the UME committee for this species, the Unusual Mortality Event Committee, and there was quite a bit of satellite tagging being done on animals that were being released from SeaWorld and from the Marine Mammal Center. And you'd be surprised how far north they would go after they were let go. They would go straight up to the North Pacific. And then they'd whip right around and go right back to Mexico. So they're pretty hardwired. We're considering the numbers that we're getting now. Sorry about that. Considering the numbers that we're getting now and seeing them off the coast of Washington and Oregon as a bit of a success story, conservation wise, their numbers are growing. I think it was at about 14% a year. So they're basically returning to their historic range, which is great news. And they've kind of snuck back in. They have made their way out there. They're out pelagic living critters. So they were out there. We just didn't see them for a few years. So they're here. They're going to be part of your survey finds from this point on. It's they've consistently been here since 2015 every year. So, all right, on to the next one. You got a scale bar in this one. And a beach watch tie.
It didn't, the slide didn't change, Sue.
It didn't?
There it is. Yay.
Oh, it's lagging. Any ideas, any thoughts, anybody? It's pretty big. That scale bar looks kind of small. It's got
one, Drew is noting that the beach watch ties that we currently use are pink, but we used to use yellow. So that's why you see the yellow tag in the slide. And we have one guest that came in the chat for stellar sea lion.
And if the person who put that in wouldn't mind expanding on that, why they think it's a stellar sea lion. Or as I say to folks,
we actually have 3 people, so feel free, Sarah, Andy, um, to unmute yourself,
As I say to people on iNaturalist,
and Sylvia.
walk me through
Um,
your ID, please.
Hi,
Hi,
um,
Andy.
this is Andy. I'm having trouble even telling what part of the animal it is, but from the color and the size, it looks like a stellar sea lion to me.
Is there anything else that, okay, so if we're thinking it's a bigger animal, looking at the rear flippers, we're pretty confident it's not a northern elephant seal, right? So we can get rid of both species of seal.
Where are the rear flippers? I'm getting lost on this picture.
Rear flippers.
Oh, there we go.
Can you see my cursor?
Yeah.
And then here's the front flipper. I didn't give you much of a view of that. And then here's the head here.
Mm.
So we can take out the two species of fur seal because they do get, the males do get that big, but they aren't here that frequently. So let's take the fur seals out just for fun. And we're gonna play around with the idea that this could be one of the sea lions. So what are some of the features that we see of stellar sea lions that made you think this was a stellar?
Some comments in the chat include long neck and body, the size, the fur, and a couple of comments about seeing a sagittal crest. There's also a question about the whisker color. Are the whiskers white?
Yes, they are.
Okay.
So most of the time in the otariids, which are the eared seals, so it would be the fur seals and the sea lions, white whiskers indicate sexual maturity or adulthood. So when they're younger, they're a little mixed. They can be, you know, brown or gray or whatever. But in the sea lions and the fur seals, the older they get, the whiter everything gets. I've had one pup make a liar out of me, and it had white whiskers on one side of its face and the regular pup whiskers on the other side. So there's always one to make me look like I'm a liar. But for the most part, the white whiskers are indicative of sexual maturity. But there's something else in this photo that is also indicative of sexual maturity. And it's right here. So you have a grizzled bump on the forehead. So between the two species of sea lion, which one do we see with that feature? And also
You're talking about a pronounced one versus hardly seeing one, right?
a pronounced one with grizzling. So you
Yes.
see, you got this pretty chocolate color along the back of the head and the neck, and you've got some grizzling, which is just lighter colored fur. We see that in sea otters and we call it grizzling. So this is like a grizzled sagittal crest. You can sometimes see that in stellar sea lions, but here's the dividing comment here. Stellar sea lions are not this color chocolate brown up around their head. They can be that color under, see like this staining here from walking around on poopy rocks and stuff like that. Stellar sea lions have this dark color on their underside, but their backside is this color, this buffy brown, but they're this buffy brown all over their whole body. So if you, I don't know if you remember in trainings where we had photographs of stellar sea lions in the water and all you have is all these honey colored heads, males, females, immatures, they all have this honey colored head because that's a very consistent field marking for them. You don't get dark brown stellar sea lions around their head. And if you want to look at, you know, research or look at some photos of them, a great place to do that is on iNaturalist. Just look it up by species and then look at them in different locations, and you'll see that it's very consistently, they're this color, this honey color all along the back of their body. Sometimes when they're wet, they might seem a little bit darker, but some of the other features are this grizzled forehead, which is very California sea lion, although really fat stellar sea lions can sometimes have a little bump, but it's not this dark and grizzle feature. They might have a little grizzling, but it's always going to be lighter behind it. And then if we had a better view of this front flipper, it would be massive. They're really wide and obnoxiously large. And then, believe it or not, stellar sea lions, if this is a big California sea lion, he's probably in the low 200 centimeters. Stellar sea lions are like a boat. They get to be like 300 centimeters. They're huge. This is a California sea lion, an adult male. And then one of the other things, I don't know if anybody sees it, and I think I'm just going to ask and see if there's anything else that you would want to document if you were standing over this animal on a survey. Is there anything that anybody sees here that seems a little odd?
Does he have a bite on his back?
Like in here?
Yeah.
I mean, he could have, like I
Or
see it.
propeller strike?
No, prop strikes, these guys, I don't think I've ever seen I have seen a prop strike on one California sea lion, but they're pretty good at avoiding that stuff. There are some gashes here. We'll sometimes see that. And I think some of the photos that Sarah Bogart has shared with me from one of her locations up there, where you see a lot of conspecific or interspecific fighting after breeding season. They come back from the Channel Islands and they're really beat up, and you'll just see these gashes all over them. So there's possibility that this was one of those. But what I'm talking about, if nobody has guessed in the comment section, is this right here. So this is an indicator that at some point in this animal's adult life, he had an entanglement of some sort. Now, for you guys, it's nice to document that, but for my reporting purposes, I report that as a human interaction, which means that something that our species did caused this animal to have an injury of some sort. With something like this, if they're really little and you cut packing straps off or fishing line off, it'll leave a scar like this. If you don't get it off, they don't typically live to adulthood because they grow into it and it ends up doing a lot of damage to their neck. But this is probably from a packing strap or some fishing line at some point in its life, and you would most likely want to document that with a scale bar next to it so that we can keep track of that stuff. I'm sure Beachwatch keeps track of that stuff. Anybody have any questions about this or concerns or ideas or anything? And stellar sea lions have really long whiskers when they're this big, like obnoxiously long whiskers. The longest one I've ever had off of I think it was a subadult male, was 22 inches long. So they can have some very long whiskers. And this guy, he's a little decomposed, but his are white, which makes him an adult. And then they're just not that long. So just one more thing to consider. And that's kind of advanced sleuthing, but why not?
Sue, I just wanted to, so we might see different entanglement, signs of entanglement at different stages. So in this case, this would be kind of a smooth skin healed scar area where there's a gap in the fur and maybe an indent, like
Yes.
it had been kind of constricted. We could also see like cut flesh in that area. And then we could also see cut flesh with actual entanglement material in that place. Yep. And so we'd want to take pictures, close-ups of all of those different scenarios, or anything like folks mentioned these other scars. If you had questions about what they were, always good to take a picture with the photo scale and kind of zoom in, because Sue is going to be able to get a lot more information if you can get in close on that kind of mark on the body.
That's also another thing that they ask on the level A data sheets that we fill out is if there's any marks on the body, if there's any intraspecific um, intraspecific battle wounds. They don't call it that, but just injuries and things like that. We do note that. So there's a lot of things that go into reporting this stuff. So even these most subtle things like bite marks, holes, scavenging, we have to report like the level of scavenging and rate it like we do, you know, Beach Watch. We do it a little bit differently. We have one more category, but your codes for that kind of stuff. But again, like something like this with the scar on the neck, you'll see enough normal animals that when you look at that, you'll go, that looks weird. What is that? And I'll photograph it. And as always, I'm here to help you with any of these questions or weird things that you find. You can shoot me photos or send me or call me or whatever, and I'm happy to walk you through whatever I think that might be.
Sue, a question in the chat. What does a hybrid California sea lion, stellar sea lion look like in comparison to this animal?
I don't believe I've seen a hybridization of the two sea lions. They may occur. And every hybrid looks really different. Even if they're the same two species over and over, you know, having babies over and over, that just the way that, just kind of like how siblings might look different. You could tell it's something, but you don't know quite for sure that that's what you're looking at. I don't know if anybody caught the ACS presentation by Mark Weber last night, but he showed a slide of a bunch of different hybrids, and he actually has in this great book of his that they're about to do the 3rd edition. He has a whole chapter on hybrids in there, hybridized fur seals actually from the Southern Hemisphere. But I've not seen the two sea lions, but it would probably be very big. And if any of you have ever had the occasion to examine a dead adult male stellar sea lion, it's an event. They're very big. The females are as big as these adult male California sea lions. They're really, really massive. Even the pups are bigger. They're born around 100 centimeters, which is what we see in California sea lions when they're coming up on age 1. So, you know, they're born at 40 pounds, where sea lion pups, California sea lion pups, are 40 pounds when they're a year old. So they're just bigger. And again, if you've seen enough California sea lions, you're going to look at something and go, this looks weird. The face looks a little more snubby, and just the coloring's different, and you're just going to recognize it as something that you don't recognize. And you'll get out your handy dandy cheat sheets and start working through it that way. Does anybody remember if we're looking at the teeth? Now this guy is on his side, so you know we might be able to see the top teeth. Does anybody have any clues or helpful hints on how to determine between a California sea lion and a stellar sea lion just by looking at the teeth on the top?
I was just going to say that because that head is there with both jaws, this would be an excellent time to open the mouth with your gloved fingers and look at the teeth and look for the clues. Yeah,
Karen says the stellar has a gap? Question mark.
Where is the gap? Because California sea lions can have a gap. They lose teeth. So where is the gap? And how do you know for sure that it's the actual gap of the stellar sea lion and not just a California sea lion who's lost a tooth?
Bob, are you thinking diastema rather than miasma?
The diastema. So stellar sea lions have it's either called a diastema or we were corrected by somebody from the dental school at UC Davis, and he said it is an interdental space. not a diastema, but
Wow.
we call it a diastema anyway. But between the fourth and fifth post canine, there's a pretty large gap between those two teeth. That gap is present on animals as young as 5 months old. I had a 5-month-old pup come off of Año Nuevo Island. It had died out there, and Denise, my coworker, brought it to our office for archival, and I was curious if the diastema was present, and it was small, but it was there. If a California sea lion is missing a tooth, you would want to look on the other side of the mouth to see if that same tooth is gone on the other side, or if it's just a fluke, if that's an open socket, things like that. So stellar sea lions, the older they get, the further back in the mouth the tooth is, but that diastema is always there. There's no ambiguity with that feature. They've always had that between the fourth and fifth post canine. So it's the two teeth that are furthest back. Any questions? Then onward. This is a beach watch photo. Any first thoughts?
Brush off the sand.
Yeah,
Brush, brush,
I
brush.
highly recommend brushing off sand before you take your photos, in case you have to do
I
something like
see,
this.
I see a few people who know very well what northern elephant seals look like. So Brenda, Sarah, suggesting this is a northern elephant seal.
Tell me why. It's on its back. Why wouldn't it be a harbor seal? It looks, the silhouette is the same. So
Brenda and Sarah, chime in.
walk me through your ID. There's plenty here to
It has black whiskers. The size is the size of a pup, well, maybe a yearling. Short front flippers, no spots. It's tan. Its hind flippers are the right shape and size.
what's the shape
Uh,
of the rear flippers?
They have the two lobes on the outside and the little indent on the inside. I don't know what that's called. I don't
Harbor
know.
seals have that same indent. There's a difference in the depth of it. We call it a deep V. So elephant seals have that deep V. There's one other feature, the rear flippers, that distinguish between the two. Do you know what that is?
Probably it's toenails.
Who has the toenails?
I think, I don't remember. I think it's these guys. You can go ant if you want.
It's actually the harbor seals that have the,
Ah, never get to see them up close.
I know. But as she pointed out, so there are black whiskers. If you were standing over this animal, you would see that there's a beaded feature. It's more like a barber pole kind of ridge that goes down the length of the whisker. Elephant seals have black whiskers. They're vibrissa is the word. So they have these the black regular vibrissa, and then they have these really long supraorbital vibrissa as well, little long whiskers sticking out over the top of their eye socket. So it's black elephant seal. It has nails and fur on both front flippers, both sides of the front flippers, but so could harbor seals. Somebody might try and make this a spotted animal with all of this. This is an animal that it's probably a 1 to 2 year old elephant seal that is undergoing either some elephant seal skin disease or just a cruddy molt. And then again, looking at these rear flippers, harbor seals and elephant seals have these big lobes, and then they have 2 different degrees of depth. Elephant seals have the more deep V. Harbor seals have just a shallower V, but it differs in comparison to the sea lions and fur seals because their toes all line up. Let's see, is there anything else on here that would be helpful? How about somebody want to take a crack at the sex of this animal?
Hmm.
I'm singing the Jeopardy song in my head.
Female.
And why is that?
Well, I can't see it super well, but I don't see the penile slit. It's kind of hard to see at this size of screen.
You're onto something there. So typically, scavengers like the holes of least resistance. One of the first places that they'll get into is a penile opening. So oftentimes you guys will, report something to me and say, we couldn't find a baculum, so we think it's a female. And then you send me the photos and there's a huge scavenge hole like right here where it had gotten scavenged. So you couldn't find a baculum because a gull probably pulled it out. But usually the presence, because that's a very random place to start scavenging, is exactly where the penile opening is. It's safe to say that if you find a carcass that has an opening here that's scavenged, then you're pretty good at saying that it's a male. If it's got those holes all over it, then you might want to back it off to unknown. But yeah, so this is a female. Good job. This is a northern elephant seal. I would say a 1 to 2 year old, not a pup. You could see it's a little bit bigger than a pup, and the skin is very much the crusty northern elephant seal skin disease kind of skin, which is something that occurs in that species 2 and under age. Any questions about this guy, girl?
Tell us about the crusty skin disease.
It's actually their own species specific disease. It's called northern elephant seal skin disease. We typically have seen it in animals that are, like I said, under the age of 2. They're typically much smaller than their cohorts. And they oftentimes have higher levels of PCBs in their blubber. So there's something weird about them. If you just you can Google northern elephant seal skin disease, and there are some published papers about it. People go in and out about whether, it's the cause for this, but it's pretty intriguing and a very sad statement about the state of our ocean when these guys who don't sit at computers or hang around plastic like we do are loaded with PCBs just from living in the ocean. So it's characterized by having these crusty sores all over their body, and then around their flippers, around the edges of their flippers, like right in here, it gets cracked and bloody. They get abscesses under the skin and stuff like that. Sorry if you're eating dessert or something, but it's most of the time they deal with it on their own in the wild. When I was at the Marine Mammal Center, we would admit some every now and then for supportive care. There's nothing treatment wise that can stave it off. You're mostly treating or fighting the infectious process that comes with those abscesses, but there isn't a drug or vaccine that you can give them that will cure the actual disease. It's mostly supportive care and diagnosis and supportive care. And they smell terrible when they have that and when they don't have that. So anyway, the northern elephant seal female.
There's a comment in the chat, probably genetics involved as well, because it is rare now. And I'm assuming the skin disease is what they're referring to being rare now.
I've seen plenty of them on iNaturalist where people say, oh, he's molting. I'm like, no. Look at all that crust. No. But anyway. Yeah, I hope it's rare. That'd be great. Number 5. What do you think? First thoughts. First thoughts. What is it?
Oh,
Is
we
it a-
have an idea in the chat. Happo,
Tell me what.
porpoise, and dolphin all coming into the chat. Dorsal fin shape as a diagnostic.
So first, it's a cetacean, right? It's not a pinniped. So it's a cetacean. Looking at the shape of the head and the shape of the dorsal fin, even though this thing's pretty chewed up and the tail flukes are gone, we don't see a rostrum. There is one dolphin in this area that doesn't have a rostrum like this, but it also has a very different dorsal fin. The Pacific white-sided dolphin has a very blunt front of their face, very much a porpoise appearing facial silhouette, but they have a very falcated dorsal fin. So porpoises, we have 2 species that can occur here, harbor porpoise and Adalis porpoise. Harbor porpoises are way more frequent because we have a nice healthy population living right off of our coast and inside San Francisco Bay. So we see them way more than Dall's porpoises. We have this nice triangular dorsal fin, these short little pointy front flippers. We don't have a tail, like we don't have a peduncle or a tail flukes, but they wouldn't have been that helpful anyway, other than if we were trying to determine if it was a Dall's porpoise. So if this was really, really super scavenged, but we had the tail flukes and the dorsal fin, but everything else was gone, we would have to try and determine if this was a Dall's porpoise or a harbor porpoise. Dall's porpoises tail flukes are a little differently shaped, and there's some different coloration. They have some very stark black and white markings. A lot of people think they're baby orcas, but you could look at the teeth also. Does anybody remember what porpoise teeth look like in comparison to a dolphin? Any ideas? I mean, this is, we have a scale bar in here. It's a little whited out, but a scale bar here. So this is a pretty small animal, and it's possible we've had baby dolphins that could be this size. So as if there's, what's,
We've got people saying spade shaped, peg shaped, pegged versus conical,
it would be
spatulate.
more, yeah, spatulate versus conical.
Yeah.
But if we looked inside this one's mouth, this one's pretty small, so it's possible that it doesn't have well erupted teeth. But if you did look inside the mouth, you would see little spatula shaped teeth. I don't see any of the white stark marks on the belly that we see in Dall's porpoises. So this is a harbor porpoise. Does anybody have any questions about this?
Well done. There was several people in the chat who had Happo as their first guess.
Excellent. I'm glowing with pride. All right, on to number 6.
Hey, Sue.
Yes,
We
ma'am.
are reaching 7:30, and I know that we mentioned that it was going to be about an hour, and you are welcome to keep going. I just wanted to let people know that it's almost 7:30. That's all.
This might be the last or second to the last. I think
Perfect.
it's not that many.
Okay. It's great,
knew we would
and
be-
it's great.
We would
So,
be talking about stuff. All right.
Okay, go.
Any thoughts or ideas about this critter? We don't have the luxury of why.
Looks spotty, short little front flippers.
Anything else? Why wouldn't it be a little elephant seal?
Spotty.
Well, the other one was spotty. The elephant seal was spotty.
White was white whiskers.
Skin disease versus fur.
Right. So I heard somebody say white whiskers.
Yeah, and their teeth are different too.
Right. So that's a rabbit hole we can go down. So you have the white whiskers. You also see what I was talking about a little while ago, like the supraorbital vibrissa. So these little hairs above the eye, they're just the same as the whiskers. There's just a handful of them in the seals. I think sea lions have them too. They're just really abbreviated. Don't quote me on that. But what, if you had this, if this was about the same size and it was a little more beat up and the same size or in the same range as an elephant seal, what somebody mentioned the teeth. What is it about the teeth that make it look different than what you would see inside the mouth of an elephant seal? Anybody? I hope I'm hearing people look at their cheat sheets, because they have very distinctly different teeth features than the other seal in consideration.
Harbor seals have the mountain shaped teeth.
Right. They have multiple points. They look like little mountain ranges, where elephant seals, they don't have really many features in their teeth. They're just boring little mushrooms or pegs. Where these guys have very distinctive teeth that look like little mountain ranges. And if you've ever rehabbed them and they bite you, it's not very much fun. But we're looking at the white whiskers. If we looked inside the mouth, it'd have those little mountain range teeth, the front flippers, and then you have the rear flippers. You can look and see if there's any nails on them. It's probably a code 4 for us. So it's advanced decomp. You could see it's the skin sloughing and mummifying and stuff like that. So this is a juvenile harbor seal. Are there any questions? You could see the difference between the variability in pelage. These guys come in a multitude of colors, from dark with lighter spots to this creamy or even lighter color white with darker spots. This one doesn't even have a lot of spots, and some of them look like they have a jillion spots. They won the spot lottery. So they can be very variable in their appearance. And just know that they can be in multiple color phases. Thoughts? We have a scale bar. Anybody? Did everyone leave?
No, they're
we have
typing.
northern fur seal, northern fur, everybody, northern fur seal, northern fur seal. Calling
me
somebody.
why.
Let's say why. Very small, long flippers, t-shirt line. Football shaped head. Stubby face. T-shirt line.
Bingo. These are my people.
Yes.
So we have this break in the fur that we talked a little bit about when we were talking about the Guadalupe fur seal. And then remember I talked about those buffy cheek patches in the bib. So it's here as well as it's a little more pronounced in this guy or this girl in comparison to the Guadalupe, but they still kind of have that. So it makes it a little ambiguous. You have the break in the fur. See how much longer these rear flippers look? They look a little dorky. They're a little long. And then you've got this really cute little mousy football shaped head. If you really want to get into super sleuthing, their teeth are a lot smaller than Guadalupe teeth. Their teeth are really small, actually. So that's just super sleuthing that we can get into some other time. But You see they've got this beautiful lush fur that kind of lays in any direction. It looks a little unbrushed. But yeah, and then at this size and age, it's really difficult to tell if it's a male or female by just looking at the abdomen. And even if you're finding the belly button here and running your finger down, like in the videos that we put on the one of the modules, I think it was the data collection, it can be really difficult. If it was really fresh, you can actually look in between these two rear flippers, and if it's unscavenged, if it's a female, there's going to be 2 holes, and if it's a male, there's going to be 1. It will just be the anus and then the scrotum. They don't have descended testicles until they get older and it gets hot out and they let them all hang out. So this is a little northern fur seal pup, looking exactly like we see them almost all the time, which is tiny and young. We'll do a quick little thing about sex. Like I was saying, you know, that you can look at an abdomen and you can see a penile opening like this. Then you can get into some really scuzzy stuff that it's really difficult to tell, but you can see there's scavenging where you would expect to see a penile opening. And then most of the time when they're really scavenged like this, you can look down here and you'll see a baculum. Sometimes it gets extruded by scavengers. Same thing here, baculum hole, and then the baculum is sticking out the bottom there. This is a big stellar female, and she didn't have any fur to help me, you know, determine anything other than I looked at her post-orbital process. But she also had these teats that were, because she was so decomposed, they were kind of poking out. On this harbor seal, which is super fresh, you could see with the little arrows, you can see the hole. You should be able to, if you went to the umbilicus and ran down towards this area from here to here, your finger should run into that. And then with this one, which is really desiccated and sloughed a lot of its fur, you can see some teats. But the thing that's remarkable is that when you look at the lower abdomen, when it's in this state of decomposition, more than likely you're going to see a baculum or a penile opening, even if it's not scavenged. There's no fur to obscure it here. So you could see the abdomen is free of any holes. So that one on the top right is a female. Any questions about sexing? And if you ever have any questions, just make sure, like in this photo here, it would have benefited a lot to have the sand brushed off of it. And I know a lot of you carry a little broom. This is optimal to have it as clean as possible so that we can do this kind of stuff. Because oftentimes sometimes things get washed out or they get buried or whatever, and I don't get to see them. So I'm taking your excellent photos that you've taken and sent to me upon request, and determining a lot from those photographs. Any questions? And I wanted to cleanse your palate of all the death.
Oh, I think everybody take your speaker off and go, ah.
So this was, I believe, I know that this has happened out at Point Reyes. This was posted by Friends of the Elephant Seals. So I don't know if they got it from them or they had the same situation happen down where they are, which I think is in Piedras Blancas or something. But this little dinky California sea lion was, at least in the Point Reyes scenario, was crawling all over the females out there. And of course, this female with her fat pup, she's tired and doesn't care. If she was awake, she would care, but she didn't. So this little California sea lion pup decided he was going to steal some milk. And he wins the mother load. Like, I think that milk is way fattier than sea lion milk. So he looks very content. I figured after all the death, I would wipe it away with the cuteness of a little sea lion pup stealing milk, and his little adopted elephant seal sibling not caring at all, having to share.
That is an amazing photo. I love that.
I remember when, I think it was Sarah Cotty or Marjorie sent me video of this out at Point Reyes at Drake's, and It was just crawling all over the females, and they didn't care. They're used to having,
Yeah.
3-ton males bull over them. They don't care. So this is called resourcefulness. This is what makes big animals from little animals in a tough year. It's probably bad, every few years we have bad years for little sea lions. And this is how this is how little ones get to be big ones. So, and that's it. All of this funding, all of these presentations and the trainings we do with you guys are done with funding provided by the Prescott Grant Program, the Marine Mammal Rescue Assistance Program through NOAA. So hopefully this was helpful for you guys. I will field any questions if you have any.
Excellent, Sue. Thank you.
You're
Thanks,
welcome.
Sue.
Lots of thank yous coming in, Sue, on the chat. It was really great. And you guys, the marine mammal presentations are still accessible that we present the advanced marine mammal trainings. You can still do those, and there's resources on the Beach Watch portal if you want more. And the Cal Academy just finished doing a marine mammal training, and that's accessible on their website. So
There's a whole sleuthing,
yeah.
video. I don't know if you caught it when we did them as Cal Academy events, but there are 3 additional ones on top of the modules that we created for Beach Watch for you guys to review. I highly encourage you, even if you've been a Beach Watch volunteer forever, to review them. They're great tests for testing your knowledge, dusting off your brains. I know these past couple of years have been very challenging, especially for you folks. And it's just a great way to remind yourself. And if it's all familiar from beginning to end, then you're doing all right. But I think go have a look at the ones at calacademy.org, search marine mammals, and you should be able to find those there. And then the modules are on the Beach Watch portal.
And if you can't find them, just email me. I'll send you the links to find all of those things, including the Cal Academy.
We worked really hard on them, so please watch them.
They were in the past couple, I think 3 or 4 in a row, notes to volunteers too, the Cal Academy announcements, so you can catch the links there as well. So email me if you can't find them.
If you're not tired of seeing my face, then
never. We want more.
Go to the Cal Academy.
We want more.
It was just like this, but it's a little more intensive. It's if you found this to be very easy, then challenge yourself by watching the one on the Cal Academy website. But it was great to see everybody.
Yeah, thank you so much, Sue.
Always my pleasure.
It sort of feels like we're getting back into swing of things, and
I hope so.
There's murmuring that we may be able to get back into our building one of these days. For anyone who doesn't know, we still can't go to our building. One person on each floor a day.
Maybe they don't want you.
Maybe they don't. Maybe
they're
don't.
just like, that's how we'll get rid of them. We just will never let them back in the building.
I know. It's there's murmurings that it may be coming to an end, but let's all stay safe and, get on the beaches. That's where we like to be anyway.
Awesome. Well, I'm still glad to see everybody. I'm glad everybody's well. As always, if you have any questions for me, certainly give me a call, shoot me an email. I'm happy to walk you guys through anything. And thank you so much for everything you do. We really appreciate it.
All right. Any questions? Anything other Beach Watch related anyone wants to ask? Feel free to unmute yourself and say hi. All right.
Sarah.
Good night, everyone. Good seeing you. We'll hear from us soon.
All right. Have a good vacation, Mo.
Thank you.
Yeah, Mo, have a good trip.
Everybody. Good night.
Bye.
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 Bye.